So we're gonna have to buck the news for today, thanks to a couple of things that have happened. Most particularly the story here, which I think is very important because it highlights a form of behavior I really hate when it comes to, I guess, people of the same ideology. You know, one of us goes down, the rest of us do. Um, I try to really keep, sort of a passing mention of the Assange thing because it's still just happened, and we're probably going to hear about additional charges and sort of the overall things that are, being done and whatnot. But my basic opinion is that we're going after a whistleblower. We're that usually never works out. It's all anti-free speech. That wonderful stuff. Dirk says hello. Just started my break. Yeah, I could have used you yesterday, Dirk. I was so disillusioned. I was like, man, every time you get some people in here, they just pop off. But going back to what I was saying, I was on Twitter, which, as most of you know at this point, is the epicenter of stupidity and just complete nonsense when it comes to being a commentator on anything. People just write all kind of weird stuff there, and it's echoed by the fact that it's not a platform that is about anything other than writing things. So whereas on here people will write weird things, but the videos are the main attraction and the main reason people go on any channel in particular. It's all the more worse there because it's literally the job of that site to just be whatever anyone is thinking. Let's put it in text. So Khanna, the representative from California, who is a member of Bernie's campaign, has been in his quarters for the last couple of years. Effectively labeled his position as believing that Assange helped uh, Hillary lose the election. Now, I've said multiple times, I think the biggest deterrent from that stopped Clinton from winning was her candidacy itself. I like to believe that if a candidate can't win the office, especially a presidential candidate, it's not a local election where people have name recognition. It's because the person themselves, everybody knew who she was, and they didn't like who she was in a lot of cases, which is why we got what we got. Splendora says, "Well, I stopped away. You can't watch every, of course, isn't the whole world." Oh, I'm not. No one's, fingering you in particular. It's just a thing I said last time around. But going back to what I was talking about, I have a couple of people I follow who identify as progressives or people that really have a distaste toward both parties. So they're kind of known to react negatively to whenever someone speaks in a way that sort of lends itself toward just being a Democrat, like the kind of the voter shaming stuff and trying to find other things to blame for Clinton losing versus Clinton herself. It's expected in a way, but it still gets a little weird when you know that this is one of their own. So this one person says, "I detest that DNC rigged the primary in favor of Hillary Clinton. If that truth helped Trump, then that conduct is what you should detest." Even though 88% of Bernie's voters voted for Hillary, so that already it was a non-factor. But let me read his comment first. Not on Hardball Chris, which is that show on MSNBC that I like to vomit to. This is the Twitter handle I read. "I will argue that the overbroad indictment of Assange is a chilling suppression of speech. The indictment criminalizes journalists asking a source for info or deleting chat logs. I detest that Assange helped Trump, but this violates the First Amendment." I still think that's a respectable position because when Alex Jones, for example, was deplatformed, I tried to say, look, people who are not fans of this guy are coming to his defense because whenever you have some pricks who sit in a little room figuring out who can speak and who can't, or what you can and can't say, or what ultimately qualifies the uh, full extent of what can be said, you're playing a dangerous game. Because what if one day the people who control YouTube are, I don't know, Republicans, and then they see me and other people speaking about our views on being progressive or whatever the hell, and they say, we don't like that, so let's the platform. So, none of that was ever about liking the person of Alex Jones. It's just the principle of saying, hey, this person is banned from ever using the site. I thought that was crazy, and a lot of other people thought the same thing. And this is kind of the position that I sort of see in Khan's comment, because he's saying this violates the First Amendment while also admitting he detests Assange. Again, what it's like, what there was a bit of a pushback from Obama. He gave the speech a short time ago about the firing squad that progressives had, where if someone doesn't go along with them 100%, they go and lose their minds. Um, and again, I like to disagree with him and say all his stuff is non-founded and completely illogical and whatnot. But it's given a lot of credibility here when you have someone who's literally saying, I support this person's right to free speech in spite of my discontent with the person themselves. But what I want to really get to, and what should be the main topic here, is the fact that it seems no one is like really ever good for this particular voting group. Like, I remember when Warren didn't endorse Bernie during the primary, and you had a lot of these progressives saying that she was a sellout, a fake, a phony, all this different stuff. Um, to where it still dogged her for years afterward. It still gets brought up. It's still cited as the example of, oh, this person is, going to stand in your corner right now and then stab your back when it's actually needed. Even though I would argue that she was trying to posture for Hillary winning and then theoretically having more influence, and her political foresight was completely screwed over, or at least turned out the exact opposite way, and that was the reason she did that. But you get my point that they'll take one thing you did and they'll blow it up to where you would almost think. I mean, I literally have a person I follow who, in another comment, said something to the effect of, "You're not a real progressive. You shouldn't say that that he's the reason she lost or whatever. You shouldn't blame him." And when you get that kind of like, this is literally verbatim what the Republicans do. If a single member of that party ever votes against Trump on anything, especially something that's domestic, they'll call the person a rhino. They'll say that they. I remember I was on Facebook and there was a person who was saying that the Republican Congressman Rohrabacher, who lost in this last midterm election, was a Democrat because he favored legalizing marijuana. Now he went with Trump on everything else and all the other Republicans because he saw on that one topic just off with his head, metaphorically, of course. Like, they really don't get that when you position yourself as so easily turning on the people that supposedly you like, all you're doing is causing those same individuals who like to, degrade this movement or people of this ideology as being kind of finicky and not really knowing what they want. You're just giving them more credibility. And what sucks is that oftentimes when you call out specific rebuttals, there's this like weird inference. Like, if I say this to them, for example, respond to them on Twitter instead of just like talking about it in the stream, you'll have different people who will say, "Oh, well, you're trying to say we shouldn't be able to criticize them ever." Like, no. The criticism has to go so far. Like, I can criticize him over, I don't know, some particular, I can't think of anything off the top of my head right now, but just over some particular issue like this, for example. But I wouldn't go as far as say, "Oh, you're not a part of our group anymore. You're a turncoat, sellout, traitor, liar, scammer, flip flopper." They really do that. I wouldn't be surprised if Dirk is one of those accounts, by the way. By the way, Dirk, since you and Splendora have very very different views of AOC. I hope you're aware that. Let me see if I can find that story that Fox talked about her 3,000 times in the last I think it was 6 weeks. She was name dropped on that network, literally thousands of times within. I think it was that. I don't even think that's 100 days. That's like, see, if a month is usually 30 days or 31, that's like 60 days of just maybe 50 something of just them bringing her name up hundreds of times on all their different programs. Dirk says might be. Yeah, you have another. I'm not entirely not convinced of that because I actually had a person who I spoke about in another stream, but I didn't talk specifically about them, where they were. Well, I didn't say their name is what I'm getting at. They blocked like me and a bunch of other people who are for the I Stand with Vic side in that Anime Gate thing, and they didn't know who I was because I didn't use the same username as I had on this other website where Like we had gotten into some kind of argument 2 years ago. It was just really funny to be aware of them not know that you're the same person. I mean, I wasn't trying to hide that I was. I didn't even speak to them, which is what was the most amusing thing. It was just them going around just blocking everybody. Dirk says Fox executives love AOC, can't keep her name out of her mouth, out of their mouth. You meant to say, I think so. Well, that's all. That's what's most amusing, that they're wondering why she carries so much clout. Like, do you guys realize what this channel would look like if I was talked about every single day on Fox? But just how much my name recognition would increase over being brought up repeatedly. Yes, Splendor, I agree. She shouldn't be getting all this attention. But again, tell that to the networks. Because look, there's a lot of Congress members who are just as active as she is, whether it's on Twitter, or on any of these other, just in any capacity, introducing legislation, but they don't get covered as much because the networks choose not to bother with it. So it's not. There's only a certain number of things that she can do. Name a random congressman. Fox can't. Well, I think a good mixture of it is the fact that, like, I think gender factors into it a wee bit. So, like, for example, I would argue that if they're going to cover anybody with any, like, actual excessive amount that is aligned with her positions and actually has done something, like has the quote unquote record, and that's only because they've been there longer. So I'm not trying to take a shot at her. Would be Khanna. I mean, he led a bipartisan group to get the Saudi-led intervention in Yemen ended, or at least have a bill that does that. And then they're trying to figure out if Trump's going to veto it or not. We had, let's see, the Amazon thing. There's been plenty of stuff that I can attach to him doing as a member of Congress. Whereas with AOC, and again, it's not an attack on her. Literally everything is she says this, and then it gets covered for days and days. Like, I think you might know what I'm talking about, Dirk. Do you ever feel like you hear more about her than you actually see of her? Like with Trump, I think it's about the same. Like I see as much as I hear as much. With her, it's like I'll see a maybe 2 minute clip of her every couple of weeks, and then in between, then it's people just taking something and having a whole commentary about her. Splendora, I kind of have a thing where, and I'm only saying this because this happened on Wednesday, where like someone will come in here and they'll talk about somebody's looks and they won't show themselves. So I'm sure you're very pretty, and you can speak about everybody. That'd be really funny if Splendora was like actually like some quote unquote Adonis or whatever. Dirk says they talk about her for 2 weeks from a 20-second clip. That's what's strange about it, that they've literally taken these small segments, or these small little videos or whatever, and they transform it into an entire segment on their channel, or on their network. Well, I guess it is a channel, but you get my point. It's not a YouTube channel, the network. Um, and this is the same thing that these progressives are doing to him. They took this one tweet and this one interview he did, and they're using that to retroactively erase all the other stuff he did with their boy Bernie for 2 years. I'm telling you, it feels like the only person that can like get away with, like actually making mistakes or just doing things that they won't like the entire way around is Sanders. Like that's why I was saying that it's hard to accept what you are, um, if it's a condemnation of your own group. So, for example, I say a lot of times that there are Trump supporters who it seems like if you say anything about him, they just lose their minds and go crazy. I've seen the same thing with some Sanders backers, but with myself, I always try to limit it to if it's an actual genuine discussion of a policy, and not like the little stupid let's talk about socialist all day thing, or oh, you made this person lose an election that you didn't even run in, referring to the general election. Stuff like that. I just don't have the patience for, because it's not based on any logic. It's just opinion and feelings and all this other mushy crap that we just don't need anymore, or at least in the capacity it's always been in, or it's been in recently. Dirk said it's easy fodder to give out as news, negating all the real news. Yeah, they've covered her to where we can't even speak about anything other than, like this. Literally, the second you bring up Democrats in the House, it's her face you see, either her or Pelosi. And I just think there are more accomplished people than both of them in there. Take it for what you will. Venezuela, they want to turn the U.S. into Venezuela. Well, hell, the U.S. wants to turn into Venezuela. It's over there trying to jack its oil. So we're not entirely taken away from that. I just hope Splendora isn't too upset with me because I wasn't trying to say that he must. That I didn't. I never told him that YouTube is the whole world. I never sat him down and looked him in his eye and said, "Hey, Splendora, YouTube's the whole world." I just want to make sure there's no misconceptions. I know I'm not as pretty as AOC, so you can't. You don't like to tune in as often. See, Dirk says they talk about her for. Okay, Khanna should be praised more. Yeah, but like what I'm saying is, I expect the mainstream media to just kind of like look at all these people and, with the exception of maybe Sanders and her, AOC, referring to AOC, just completely ignore the rest of them. But it seems like with him, the only people that usually give him support, which are characters online, his supporters or that progressive base, they literally will just sit there and continue to like basically it sucks that the only group that's paying him attention is just crapping all over him for saying one thing they didn't fully agree with. I'm sure they do agree with this being a violation of the First Amendment, but because it isn't entirely what they want, just screw it. Okay, Splendora says AOC or Pelosi, that's like asking if you prefer to die of a stroke or a heart attack tomorrow. I was talking about Cortez. Uh, that's the real reason you didn't come back. I didn't put any of her pictures of. I should actually. You know what I'll do? Next time I see Splendora, I'll print out AOC's like her official congressional photo, and I'll stick it right behind me, so you can just look at that while I'm speaking. That'll increase your retention. That will be the strategy going into your interest and whatnot. Oh, this is so insane. I'm just blown away that like I'm actually watching these comments. Like I'm seeing one guy who's saying that if you don't get this, then you're just like all the other ones. It's like, what are you talking about? But this is what I'm talking. This is what I'm talking about. They will take one thing you did and just let it eviscerate all the other record. Like, remember when we had the national declaration get? I think it got not blocked, but it was voted down by about 12 Republicans, and with the exception of I think Murkowski and Collins, all the other ones had these really, really, really high records of voting with Trump all the time. And then I'm on Twitter, watching his supporters, and they're like, "Here's the dirty dozen. Here's the evil people. Here's the bad guys." No, no, Dirk. I saw the fake progressives. I saw there was some old hoe on on there who was like, "I never thought I'd have to block Ro Khanna," after he endorsed Bernie. So those are the ones that we actually have to say, "Hey, you don't even like actually support any of this stuff. You're just, some idiot that thinks anyone who's not Trump is, you know." Are they going after Khanna for what? Yeah, they're going after him for the Assange comment, where he's like, he doesn't, where they're mad that he blames him, or at least he thinks he's partially responsible for Clinton losing the election. They're upset by that. They're not upset by him saying that it's a violation of the First Amendment to just, like say we're going to put anyone in jail that we don't agree with. Um, they fully agree with that part of his comment, but I'm saying that because they're not getting all of what they want from him as far as a position they themselves have that they expect him to just use as well, they're pissed. And I was saying that this comment, these reactions are reminding me so much of the stuff we had with some of the with Obama, where he was talking about the firing squad, where if you don't get all of what you want, then you go crazy. And I'm like, I only would probably do that to members of Congress or just politicians that I already have a low opinion of and didn't think that much of to begin with. Um, So it's just kind of a thing where it's like a half truth. Like, yeah, I'd get pissed, but not at people I actually think are malleable or like an honest actor and whatnot, or people I like to begin with. So they don't get it. But yes, Splendor, the real reason you won't come is because I'm not Pelosi or AOC. That's the true meaning. Your motive has been exposed. I mean, holy hell, these people are going crazy. Like, just I'm almost at a loss for words. That's why I just decided to just skip Friday news because I didn't want to lump all of it together. So I might end up going off quicker. I know Splendora doesn't care because he doesn't like my stuff. He just comes here to torture himself with every couple of days. He's like, oh yeah, it'd be funny if you have like a hate boner. What do you call it, folder where you have like a bunch of pictures of AOC and Pelosi, and you just torture yourself looking at them. You're like, oh, all frowning up and everything. I can picture that. But yeah, man, a lot of stuff that conservatives have talked about with liberals, they just keep proving them right, and I hate saying that. Like it almost it doesn't pay me to say it, but it's kind of irritating when it's coming from my own particular sector of that ideology, where it's the people who hate both parties and like a couple of people mixed in between one or two, and they're literally going after someone for not agreeing with every single thing they agree with. Dirk says it doesn't even matter about the 2016 rigging, which is very important. The news that he gave to Manning is very much needed to know for our country, and don't even get me started about what they are still doing to Manning. Yeah, I don't get it. Like I just don't understand why they can't see you're not going to get all of what you want in these people, but then you know you could still have some that are better than others. Cracking down free speech is going to be the precedent set. Well, that's my point. Khanna, in his statement, the one I read for you earlier, and I'll read it again if you want me to, said, doing this stuff is a violation of free speech, regardless of how we feel about Assange as a person. And they're still pissed. So it seems like you can't win. What is this? Let me share this link. I mean, holy hell. Like sometimes I don't even want to. I think I mentioned before, I just go on Twitter to promote my own stuff. It really seems like the only way you can really get people to think critically about a lot of this stuff without just losing their minds is if you go, hey, remember that orange guy? Remember the one that we all are supposed to dislike? Yeah, it turns out the person who's saying something you don't entirely agree with isn't as bad as him. And I don't think a lot of them feel that way, like, oh my God, you're automatically as bad as the other person. But like when I read this stuff and I start seeing, I'm so disgusted with you, and oh my God, you betrayed me, and yeah, it's like, well, hell, what else do you want from him? Because you guys were complaining. If you remember, Dirk, they were complaining that Bernie, and this is for everybody, Harris, Booker, Castro, Warren, all of them, that none of them were saying anything about the arrest. Like they were all just keeping quiet, right? I still don't think any of them, other than Gabbard, have said anything. But they were losing their minds. They were pissed off, and now they're getting a member of Congress to say, "Hey, look, this is my position," and because it's not entirely what they want, Dirk says people are just blinded about the name Assange and not the reason they imprison most likely will torture him for. Yeah, I wish we could talk about that stuff too, torture and just the way we treat prisoners. Because the same like bleeding hearts that were crying about the family separations are the same ones that ignore let's see, a prison system that that's been proven to execute in many cases the wrong people, that was supported by both major party presidential candidates last time around, who these people are still supporting and still saying still with her for, ironically enough, and a bunch of countries that the U.S. bombs. Like, this is my point, that they don't really it's all grandstanding and mudslinging, just like that guy saw on C-SPAN on New Year's Day, where they're not serious about any of this crap. They just grab a couple of people to say they like, while they write stupid stuff on Twitter about whoever the hell, and the rest of us just have to adapt to it. Dirk says Bernie needs to speak. Tulsi's getting higher and higher for me as a choice to vote. Oh yeah, well I've had a high opinion of her this whole time. It's just she's going to keep getting smeared with this, with like the non-regime change support in Syria. So they're going to keep talking about you're an Assad crony, ha ha ha, and it's going to make no impact because most people don't even actually care about any international matters. So it's like it's again the red scare of let's keep saying this thing that nobody really understands, and then maybe enough people will get turned off. We hope. Also, Splendora is darkness, confirmed. I don't even know what Splendora sees in my stuff. He like, I remember I had a joke where there's like always that one person especially when there's like a big chat group, that is kind of indifferent or leans more against it than not. Like, I don't get what the appeal is. I don't know if he's a left leaning person or not. He's an anomaly. So it's a thing I just scratch my head at trying to figure out why he comes. I'm not upset. I just don't understand. Dirk says the topic of Assange and Manning should be a topic of the official debates to weed out the fakes. Again, it would be if Americans cared about foreign issues. Like that's why I kept sharing Gravel rather, his donation thing, because on his website he had an entire platform of what he wanted to see the U.S. do internationally, and it was all about getting out of the conflicts, getting back in certain deals. He laid out a specific, like, all that platitude crap the rest of them were doing. It was literally him saying, "This is specifically what I want us to do." In fact, I'm going to post it again because maybe one of you guys will say, that sounds interesting. I really wish I could be linked back to where this is coming from. So let me go to his website and go to his issues section, and then I'll put up the link for his ideas of what we should do as it relates to international affairs. Oh no, Splendora left. Uh, it sucks. Well, I just linked it, David. You said the other day, if it doesn't affect them immediately, people just won't care as long as we get our Super Bowl. The people are good. Oh, okay, here's Splendora. I was worried. Okay, I am a left leaning. I was like, no, I didn't want to. I didn't want to make him leave or get upset. I'm gonna welcome him with open arms and all that. I am a left leaning libertarian. I'll read the rest of your comment in a moment, David. Just more fed up with the authoritarian left in recent years. They hold more power and can cause greater harm, therefore require the most criticism. Well, yeah, but my thing is, I don't know who you like because you apparently don't like. I mean, as far as like both parties, whatever. But like certain politicians that are seen as polar opposites of each other. Like if you ask a Trump fan about if he and Pelosi are alike, almost all of them would say no, or they would all say no. Damn, they're like 99%. So, like, do you have any people who are currently in office that you actually like? Is what I'm asking, because I can't read you anymore. I'm like, all right, well, I'm confused. Okay, David was saying you said it the other day. If it doesn't affect them immediately, people just won't care. As long as we get our Super Bowl, the people are good. Yeah, they have a thing where they just get off on not being affected by stuff, and if it's not explicitly happening to someone they know, it just doesn't resonate with them. Just like I had a guy who I told him about the chick stuff, and just like basically the summary of how you get told about the need for equality in America and all this, lovely optimistic crap, but then you have the guys having to go out and approach the woman still and compete with all these other dudes, and the woman's expected to just kind of sit there while the guy is told he has to do all this stuff to appeal to her. And the person was like, "Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. It's crazy." And then literally when it happened to one of his friends, like, "Oh, I see what you mean, man. Yeah, I get." Like, but why did it take it happening to someone you knew for you to recognize, hey, maybe it's not the man that's always at fault? It was one of those things where I really hate, we have to have it, occur to us to actually develop any kind of empathy. Like, I don't need to have my house bombed, like in the Middle East, to say, hey, enough with the nonsensical killings. All right, Dirk says it's Mike. Just like you said, you corrected yourself. I see it. Gravel is great for that, but he should have done this in 2016 because with Tulsi along with Warren, the debate is already very left. Well, if you go on his Twitter account, he's talking about specific problems he has with how the field is going, where there are certain things he wants to say that he doesn't expect the other ones to say, basically, that it's like a support thing for them. And you got to remember, with Sanders, Warren, and Gabbard, all of them are depicting themselves as serious contenders that are trying to win this. When you go into it and you say, hey, look, I like these two people, Sanders and Gabbard, and I'm going to just roast the rest of the field to help them, I think that's an honorable thing to do as far as trying to promote those ideas and see them through in some manner. I'm just saying. I hope you donate, Dirk. If you don't, oh well. I tried. Sondorsa as a huge on both sides. Hate him. I mean, I don't consider myself authoritarian. I'm not that big a fan of him. Like I said, I'm not a fan of him. Obama. We can go down the list of just people and different politicians I can't stand, and we can name a policy issue with all of them. So have fun with that. All right, let me see. I want to know if David clicked the link, if he saw it, or if he was just trolling, like the person who was obsessed with my shirt. The heterosexual man who was interested in my clothing. I don't think I've ever seen that, where it's because I know they have the chats on Twitch where people like a bunch of these chicks will purposefully barely wear any clothes, and then the guys will be in there just whacking off to some like half naked broad, and it was just really weird to actually see commentary directed at a person that like isn't doing any of that over that, when it has nothing to do with anything. It's just so strange. Like, what the hell? Yeah, people are so weird on this on the internet. It's crazy. Dirk says it's kind of like Mike is pointing a red arrow while standing on the streets trying to guide the debate, while Bernie and Warren were already going 100 miles in that left direction. Well, I think he'd be beneficial. If you don't, hey, we just have to disagree. I just don't see a path for Warren to win. I think she should get out. I think most of that field should get out, but they're not going to realistically think about doing it until like October or November, probably. I know it was probably, anytime I try to make an estimate of when people are going to drop out, it's always harder because people keep doing stuff that surprises me. Okay, got to go back to work. I'll see you later, Dirk. I hope you enjoy work. David says, turn the Department of Defense into war. I'm confused. Weren't they attacking other countries to begin with? How we get the U.S. of today? No, he's saying that you should have one department for war and one for peace, one for negotiations, one for whenever you're engaged by some other country. Is why he said that a differentiation. Because what he or what I've tried to say before is that the Department of Defense seems so recurringly to be run by these generals who have a serious like fetish for getting involved in all these different conflicts for no reason. Like, take Mattis, for example, who, again, I say this as someone who thought of him in a respectful manner because he showed himself to be malleable on issues like the environment and what was the other one? There was something else. Oh, and the Iran deal. And he was a person who got pissed at Trump for wanting to pull out of Syria, which, ironically enough, Trump didn't end up doing. So it all turned out to be this big thing of, I'm angry because you won't stay in this war forever. Let me leave, is what his position was. David says, I'm down for the Department of Peace as long as we keep our word and not break treaties as they did in the past. I mean, we're doing it back and forth. We pulled out of the Paris Agreement. We pulled out of the INF, pulled out of the Iran deal. There's probably some other stuff I can't think of right now. Where just those are three agreements that we and remember this is two of those were by Obama, one was by Reagan that have all been pulled out in the last 2 years by Trump. So and we're apparently going to get out of the New START treaty too, which is going to piss me off even more because that was signed by somebody I like. But whatever, can't have what you want ever. I think I told you before. I don't know if I mentioned this, but all the other countries in the Iran deal are still there. So we literally are just the rogue state. Like we just look so weird because, again, everybody else is like, this is a great agreement or this is an okay agreement. Let's stay in there. And it's just us going, no, bad deal, horrible plan, blah, blah. Only us. The rest of the world's like, yeah, we're all friends here. And I kept trying to explain to people that when you look at basic logic, and you just say to yourself, you got to ask, like, even as a fan of him, this is stupid. Like, pulling out of the Paris Agreement was dumb. We became one of only 3 countries in the entire world to get out of that agreement. And, like, his fans convinced themselves that the rest of the world, all these other countries put together, the over 100 of them, all got together to screw over the U.S. with a quote-unquote bad deal. Wow. So I'm done as far as trying to reason with these people. When they come in my comment section, they start trying to debate stuff. I know that they're not honest actors, just here to cause chaos and do all kind of weird things that don't make any sense. And you really can't win because when you try to say, hey, look, let's just discuss this on the substance of a particular issue. Like when I did my serious, I don't know, it wasn't a stream, it was a video. But I talked about the issue with staying over there, how it was a pointless conflict, just stuff relating to that particular topic. And then I get some crap in the comment section about urban renewal and no more beef between two other, just, completely unrelated and all meant to derail from the fact that the guy that this person happens to like who's in the White House completely just flipped his switch on this position. So it just seems like this thing where, between them screwing with me on here, between politicians that I actually think are okay or at least all right, like, Khanna, for example, getting just flack for saying, not even saying something that's completely incorrect, something that just halfway isn't what they want. They still lose their minds. They go crazy. Like, you can't win. Release a chat and dances under a moon, other weird stuff. Yeah, pretty much just strange things end up happening on here. Like I've never seen some of the behavior that is being exhibited. Like I don't know how you can have a video with no tags and then get a bunch of Trump supporters on it. Like they grow them out of a farm? I'm so confused. I don't understand. David says agree with the Boston Space Force, stay on Earth and fix problems here. That's kind of my thing. They're like weirdly ambitious when we have a D plus infrastructure, 76% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. We can go down the list, but these are all issues that go completely unaddressed by Trump and his supporters. And when they do get brought up, they're all, basically trying to put everybody under a box. Oh, all those people are lazy and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, well, you're not really helping here. So, you have fun with that. Anyway, progressives are literally turn themselves into the fire squad. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can critique these people over without saying, "Oh my God, you traitor! I can't believe you would do this. You would agree with me 100% of the time." Like they're doing with Khanna on Twitter. So, thank you for showing up, David. Thanks, Splendora. I appreciate it. I'll see if we can do a stream tomorrow. And unlike what Splendora said, we all fully believe that YouTube is the whole world. That's why we get pissed when people say things we don't like on here. Signing out.